recording us too, so we have it going.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. If you're here for Green Apple Books' event with Tracy Anne Hart and Robert Duncan, you are in the right place. I'm going to go ahead and welcome you. Say hello from San Francisco, California, beautiful San Francisco, California. My name's Car. I'm the event coordinator here at Green Apple Books. And I just wanted to thank you for joining us this evening for Tracy's book, Seeing Stevie Ray. I have a copy behind me. I have a copy right here in my hand. We have copies available at our store, and they're signed with signed book plates. We're also joined by Robert Duncan, who's the author of the novel Loudmouth. It's his first novel. Both books came out this year, and what a year it was for new books to come out. Am I right?
Couldn't have been better, yeah.
Before I introduce this evening's authors, I did want to say just a couple of things to you joining us. First, as I said previously, I might have mentioned that this is Green Apple's last event for 2020, and it has been a heck of a year. I'd like to thank all of you who've joined us. If this is your first time joining us, thank you very much. We are the store that we are because of your time and support, and we are very appreciative of it. And I can tell you from the bottom of this event coordinator's heart that we are very appreciative of it. So thank you kindly. I'd also like to say second that Tracy was kind enough to donate a print of hers to Green Apple to auction off, benefiting not only Green Apple Books, but also the San Francisco Marin Food Bank. And we're very pleased to share that that auction has closed. We'd like to congratulate Matthew in New Hampshire on his win. Thank you, Matthew. Green Apple appreciates it, and I know the food bank appreciates it too. We are also raffling off a signed galley or advanced uncorrected proof of Robert's book, which is something that's harder to come by than a completed copy, thus the auction. And we're going to keep that auction going in the hopes of sending more money to the food bank. Additionally, for every copy of both Seeing Stevie Ray and of Loudmouth that Green Apple sells, we're going to be donating 10% to the food bank too. This all started out of Tracy's generosity and in an effort to carry on Stevie Ray Vaughn's legacy. Stevie Ray would donate to local food banks while on tour, and we are very grateful and happy to do so in his honor as well. So thank you for helping us do that, all of you. This has been a tough year for many people. Thank you, Tracy. This has been a tough year for many people. And I was just reading that, and I was sharing with Tracy and Robert earlier that the Bay Area food banks are at an all-time high in terms of demand and need of donations. So please help us help them. We also encourage you to donate to them directly in addition to your purchase of Tracy and Robert's books. So before I go ahead to and introduce our authors, I would like to encourage you to use the Q&A function. They'll either be on the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, depending on how you're joining us via Zoom. But you can go ahead, use that Q&A function throughout the hour and submit your questions, and we will get to them at the end of the hour. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Robert Duncan, who's the previous managing editor for Creem magazine, working in Detroit alongside Lester Bangs. His previous books include The Noise, Notes from a Rock and Roll Era, and Kiss, a tongue-in-cheek biography. He is founder of the advertising and design firm Duncan Shannon and its Tip Records subsidiary. He lives with his wife, artist and rock photographer Ronnie Hoffman, near San Francisco. His first novel, Loudmouth, just came out this year, and we are happy to have him here at Green Apple tonight. Please welcome Robert Duncan.
Thank you, Car. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks. And last but not
least, for joining me, Robert. I really appreciate that. And Creem magazine is, it's legendary. It's an icon for sure.
It's funny. I just got
two rock people here. It's pretty cool.
I just got the 50th anniversary commemorative edition today in the mail. That's what that little poster is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh.
Cool. Let me tell you a little bit about Tracy. Tracy Anne Hart is perhaps best known for the widely published, exhibited, and auctioned images of Texas music legend Stevie Ray Vaughn, who she had the privilege to photograph between 1983 and his untimely death in 1990. Her work has been exhibited at the Continental Club Gallery in Austin and at the Texas Folk Life Gallery and at galleries in Chicago, Los Angeles, Portland, and other cities, showcasing her music, architectural, and nature photographs. Hart is a second-generation photographer and has owned the Heights Gallery in Houston since 1984, originally with her late father. Her book, Seeing Stevie Ray, is the reason we are here this evening. Please join me in welcoming Tracy Anne Hart.
Thank you, Carr. Appreciate that. And I would like to say also, a shameless plug here for my photographs at the heightsgallery.com, which is just an online presence at this time. I also donate a percentage of any prints that I sell to the food bank. So just wanted to be sure that people knew that as well.
Thank you.
And also, I might say, I'm coming to you from Rockefeller's, which is one of the venues in Houston that's, like every other venue in the country, struggling to survive because of COVID and what's been going on, and have socially distant shows. The last time I was here, this, of course, this picture is not from that, but this is Eric Tesner, who wrote one of the forwards to the book. And Eric, I have to thank Eric because he was our technical person for this. He set everything up and brought his wonderful Sony ZV-1. And yeah, so thank you, Eric. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Oh, okay. So I will hand it over to Robert.
Well, thank you, Tracy. It's fun to be here. I love your photographs. And of course, Stevie was just a unique figure in I call it rock and roll. You can call it blues or whatever. But why don't we start with, you mentioned your father, or your father was mentioned in the intro there, in your bio. And talk about how, let's just start at the beginning for a minute and talk about how you got involved with photography and got involved with Austin. I know you didn't grow up, or you weren't born there.
No, I was not born in Austin. My dad, Leonard M. Hart, he was a photographer all his life, and he actually invented some methods for photographing the inner eye. He was a medical photographer, and that's how he is known, not in rock and roll circles. But he and my mom, they love music too. My mom was actually a big Jimmy Vaughn fan, and my dad got to meet Stevie and everything, so that was cool. But without my dad, without having the cameras around the house, and just like a guitar player growing up with a parent who's a guitar player, and there's all this equipment laying around, you can't help it. You just kind of absorb it by osmosis. So it's there, and if you're at all inclined that way, you pick it up, and there you go.
And did he critique your photos? Was he a photo professor for you as growing up?
Not really. I mean, it was more that, if I asked him, if I said, well, I want to do this and I don't know how, well, what can I do to achieve this sort of an image? I'd like show him something in a magazine or a book or whatever. And then he would advise me on that. But he never said, well, you're doing it wrong. This is how you do it. You don't do it that way, ever. So I had the freedom to be creative, which I think is a very important thing. Not having somebody tell you, oh, you must do it this way. In fact, I briefly went to UT, and when I was there, I took a couple of photography courses, and I didn't really do well because, I was kind of a spoiled brat, and if I didn't like the assignment, I'd just blow it off. So, you know.
When all right, now, how did you get to Texas, and how did you get involved with Stevie Ray Vaughn, who is such a part of Texas music and Texas kind of music lore? You know, how did you cross paths with him, but how did you wind up in Texas from Chicago?
Well, my family moved to North Carolina when I was 2 years old. So not my decision, you know. And I loved it there. And then when I was 11, my dad said, well, we're going to move to Texas. We're going to move to Houston. So that's how I got to Texas. And, you know, at first I didn't like it much, but, you know, after I got into it and, you know, there was a lot of music in Houston, too. I mean,
Right.
it may have been coming to us from Austin, but every Austin band played in Houston, always, you know. And then, of course, you know, Houston, it's the action town. I mean, you have all the old R&B and blues and so on, Lightnin' Hopkins, you have ZZ Top, you have all those guys. So it's not like Houston is devoid of music or
Right.
anything original.
Right.
So,
And how did, yeah,
oh, how did I get into blues?
photographing musicians and, you know, in getting involved with the music business and then with Stevie Ray?
Well, I had I won't say in college, I met a musician when I was going to college at UT, and he kind of got to be a boyfriend, and he was a guitar player and singer. So I thought, you know, I was just barely starting out taking pictures. I wasn't somebody who started doing it when they were 5 years old. You know, I wasn't a child prodigy. But you know, I thought, well, I would like to capture him on film and you know, get pictures of him and what he does and kind of try to translate the sound into an image. And he was very, very photogenic, so that was good. And he also told me things like, you know, if you got a great guitar and you're a guitar player, it's usually what you want to see the guitar in the picture as well as just somebody's face at a microphone. So, you know, not to criticize people who shoot musicians just while they're at the mic, but of course it's easier because, you know, they're stationary. Whereas when people are playing the guitar or whatever instrument they play, they're moving, unless it's a B3 or something, they're moving around a lot with the instrument. So for them to be at the mic, that was how I started. And then my boyfriend said, well, you know, I really like some pictures of me just playing. So, and then when I got back to Houston, I dropped out of UT after about 1.5 years and got back to Houston, and I actually was working at some camera stores in Houston, most of which are gone, but there were a bunch of them in at that time. And then I started going to shows. I was kind of into like punk and new wave, and then I saw Joe Ely, who's a tremendous Texas musician.
Love Joe Ely.
Joe Ely, yeah.
Yeah, I
and,
love him. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple of pictures of him with Stevie in the book. You know, I was like, how do I fit Joe into this? But I had to get him in there somewhere. He also wrote a really nice cover blurb for me. And I was also, you know, seeing bands like X. And through X, and through Joe, I started to listen to the Blasters. And that brought me back to R&B and the blues, which, you know, I was one of those kids who had the radio and would listen to music coming in from WLS or whatever stations, you know, with the late night insomnia thing. So I was kind of a hyper kid, so, you know, and still am. It's pretty hyper, actually. But that was just something. I just always loved music. As I said, you know, my dad was a photographer. He wasn't a guitar player, so it was just like, well, that's how I'll get into it.
You know, I was thinking we should just roll through a few of your pictures. You know, not torment the audience, but I did want to follow up and say, you know, and then how did you cross paths with Stevie Ray? But I also wanted to ask, and I mentioned this to you at some point, you know, I was struck when I was first looking through the book by, wow, there's a lot of handsome men in Texas, you know? And I thought when you just said your boyfriend is photogenic, I thought, well, maybe you just make them all look good. Because in the book,
they were all of them are really incredibly unattractive, and it's just me and my camera, you know.
Well, I wondered, and I thought, well, maybe I could get a photograph of get Tracy to photograph me. But you do seem to have a way of bringing out, you know, masculine beauty.
Okay, stage beauty, so to say. Have you ever seen that movie? A very interesting movie. You know, I went for artists who were visual, and I'm not necessarily, you know, traditionally handsome or anything like that. I'm not going to name names, but a lot of the people who I shoot are not what you know, they're not Cary Grant. To go back to Cary Grant, they're not movie star or old time movie star handsome, but they have something. They have that charisma and that spark. I mean, it's like sex appeal. You know, you can look at somebody who's absolutely beautiful, who has absolutely no sex appeal. Where sometimes, you know, you'll see someone who quote unquote is imperfect, has, you know, technically imperfect features, but they're gorgeous, and they're just, you know, like Tim Curry in Rocky Horror or something like that.
Well, I just thought that well, I think you've captured something in the photographs. Can you just roll into some of them, and we can just talk about what here? I love this one.
Yeah, thank you. That's literally right after I met Stevie, and I was working for, again, a new wave punk free paper here in Houston, and they said, hey, this guy Stevie Ray Vaughn, he's on David Bowie's album. We got to go interview him. And you know, he'd been playing at Fitzgerald's, another club here, which is no longer with us. He'd been playing there, like, you know, twice a month for a couple of years, and would get, like, you know, 10 or 15 people in the audience sometimes. But they said, well, you got to go get some pictures of him. We got to interview him because of David Bowie. And I love David Bowie. I also had seen Jimmy Vaughn and the Thunderbirds about 6 or 7 months before this. This was in March of 1983. And I said, yeah, for sure. Let's go do that. And, you know, then this is what you see here. This is when I first met him. And this was also when I was first starting to use Leica cameras, which I started with Olympus and then went to Nikon. And then I decided, well, man, I'm shooting in these small clubs. I need something where I can really see what I'm doing, and that was a Leica. So this is one of the first Leica shows I did.
It looks like, to me, he looks kind of, he's Stevie Ray Vaughan in you know, he's not yet formed as a Stevie Ray Vaughan persona that we know. When I first looked at it, he looked like a kid, but you can also see that he doesn't have his whole, you know, his whole shtick together, which you see magnificently later in the book. Can we
Yeah, let's go to another slide. Well, this is one of my favorite pictures of him ever, and it's one of the early ones, and it's got the ambient light effect with you know, dragging the shutter, shooting at a low shutter speed with a flash. And you know, the word ambient light in a nightclub is kind of like, you've really got to shoot at a slow shutter speed to achieve that.
Yeah.
But I just like that because it's just um, it's kind of like slide guitar, you know. It's
Yeah.
just or ghost notes, or all of that stuff, all of that whole kind of whatever, and almost like spirit photography, and that there's something, there's a presence there, but it's not solid, you know.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. And I like that it's like slide guitar. Well, we talked about,
Fluid, yeah.
and we talked about how I always think of Stevie Ray Vaughan as a guy who really plays with time in music. You know, his tempos will shift slightly, and he's very much he's messing around with time, and that's exactly what you're doing here in these photographs. And of course, photography is a whole thing about
Whatever time is anyway, right?
yeah, whatever time is. But I thought there was like, for instance, this one is such a great matchup with the sound. You know, this is analogous to the sound, as you said. It's like slide guitar photography.
Yeah, but of course he's not playing slide here, but his
right.
fingers were so big and so strong, and he had such huge calluses that when he played songs like Lenny, which I think is the next slide.
Yeah.
When he's playing the song Lenny, and part of it almost sounds like he's playing slide because just the way the skin was on his fingers, and of course that song's all whammy, and it's a song Lenny, which was his first wife's name, and the Strat called Lenny, which she bought with some friends of his for him, and there you have it. He used to play this at the end of the night, and it was a gorgeous song. Almost sounded like what they called a long time ago Hawaiian guitar,
Right.
Or like or pedal steel, like the guy who was on the Lawrence Welk show who used to make the guitar talk. I think it's an Aldo Ray or something like that, or something like that. But
right.
Yeah, he would actually, like talk to the guitar, which if you had to watch the Lawrence Welk show with your grandparents when they were babysitting you, it was like, wow, this is cool. It's like, all of a sudden, it's not the Lemon Sisters or Lord knows what kind of easy listening stuff they're throwing at us.
Well, so, you're making me sad that I missed that, but I do know that the Hawaiian music was influential on country music, and
Yes, very much so, with the steel, the pedal steel, and steel guitars, and of course, the country and blues, real hardcore old time country and blues. There's always that connection.
Yeah.
It's just what is it? A good man feeling bad, or whatever B.B. King said.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is a little unusual in that Stevie's playing an ES-335.
Right.
I would say dot neck, but it's kind of obvious that it's a dot neck.
Yeah.
But he rarely played that guitar, but he he couldn't throw it around and stand on it and stomp on it the way he did on the Strat, obviously.
Because it's a semi-hollow body, and
yes, exactly.
He played all solid bodies.
Mostly, yeah.
I thought this was unusual, and now he's got his what do you call it, like judo outfit kind of thing.
Yeah, actually, I think that part of this outfit was actually his wife Lenny's outfit. They used to exchange clothing because they were about the same size. And so sometimes he would wear her stuff, and he had the kimonos and everything. So that was an important part of his look as well.
Was he small?
He was not a big guy at all. I mean, he had huge hands, obviously. I mean, of course, this is, taken with a slightly wide angle lens. So of course it makes his hands are in front of the picture, but he really had huge, strong hands. And that is an integral part of his sound. Just like, just as much as the pedals or the guitars, being tuned a certain way, or, great big strings or whatever. That was a huge part of the sound.
Can we keep going, Car?
Yeah. Okay. So this is Stevie with his brother Jimmy at the Buddy Music Awards, as it says there. And okay, should I talk about the guitars first or the cameras?
Well, I love the idea that you speak so knowledgeably, technically about guitars and guitar sound. So yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, Stevie's playing a Hamilton, which was given to him by Billy Gibbons, and it was sort of a boutique guitar, and I can't remember. It wasn't computerized, but it had some kind of strange electronics in it or something that, the sound would be peak when everything was fully charged and so on. I know that Gibson tried to do a computerized Les Paul several years ago. I don't know whatever happened with that, but I don't think people went for it. And then Jimmy's got his classic Strat, the maple neck, early 60s Strat, which is the one that was copied for the Fender Jimmy Vaughn guitars, both the inexpensive Tex-Mex guitar and then the one that's more of a replica. But, the Jimmy and that guitar, what a combination. Yeah. I also, I like this picture because it shows the difference between the brothers. I mean, you can see, Jimmy's got the suit and the classic Strat, the classic look, and Stevie's much more flamboyant. He's got, the hat and the kimono and so on. So I think that's that brother yin yang thing going on there. I like that for that. Now, the weird part about this is it was taken with a Leica M4M white dot. I don't know how many camera enthusiasts there are out there, but that was an incredibly rare camera. It was actually made to shoot the inner eye was a collaborative thing with Zeiss. And, Leica made 25, 35 of them. And then, they sold them. They put them up to Leica specs, viewfinders, et cetera, and sold them as an M4M white dot. Basically, it was a motorized M4 without a motor, and hence the white dot. It has nothing to do with ES335s. And it was just, just a really fine camera, shiny black lacquer and everything. And both of these brothers, just like I talked about the guitars with them, they were like, wow, that's a really cool looking camera. Because it was a fairly flashy looking camera. Yeah. So, yeah.
And you said it was developed for photographing the inside the eye?
Right. Speaking of inside the eye. Right. And my dad and I, it's really weird. We got it. A guy called us. He had a photo studio in Bel Air in Houston, in a building that is now a Whole Foods, strangely enough. But and he said, I've got this. I don't shoot Leica. I don't know what it is, and but would y'all like to buy it for, some really low amount of money? And we said, when you make deals with people, you generally don't say, well, that's worth a whole lot more than you want for it. I will pay you 5 times as much. So, but I got it, and I did shoot with it for quite a while. It was just a cool camera.
Did your father ever use it for shooting, taking pictures of eyes?
He had retired by that time, and he ran the Houston camera shows, which were very much like guitar shows. You'd have classic stuff, you'd have brand new stuff, and you'd have cameras like this that were worth $25,000 to $100,000. So guitar shows. So he shot, he and I both shot with everything that we got. Even if we got something specifically to sell, we'd shoot with it and check it out and, make sure that it worked and so on. So
just a funny tie-in. And here's the leopard coat.
Yep. It's kind of a combination of something that James Brown would have worn and something that Gary Oldman wore when he played a pimp in True Romance.
Yeah, definitely got pimp vibes about.
Oh yes, very much so, very much so. And he's citing bootleg albums here before a show at the Sam Houston Coliseum. And he was looking at me asking me, why am I signing these and making my own bootlegs more valuable? So that's what that expression means.
Was he a nice guy, a charming guy? Did you like hanging around with him?
Yeah, I did like hanging around with him. I mean, you know, he was a kid brother and I was kid sister, and, you know, just you got, there's something to that, you know, especially you're always trying to keep up with and outdo your older sibling. And so, you know, you just try extra hard, and you've got that combination of ego and insecurity, which is a real volatile package, actually.
Yeah.
But, you know, just like people like Dave Alvin in his younger days. And,
Dave and Phil.
Yeah, it's all that kid brother thing.
But
you do tend to augment that with massive quantities of drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. But
to answer you, yeah, Stevie, he was a very humble person and a very nice person. He had a great sense of humor. Sure, when he was, you know, really messed up, actually starting around this time and several years before, you know, he was not always the most pleasant person to be around. But when he did get clean later this year, after he almost died, he was just incredibly nice and incredibly inspiring too. Because so many people have been through what he went through and not come out on the other side. And so many people are struggling with it or have struggled with it. And that's part of his legacy, that he continues to inspire people, you know, by saying, you know, from beyond wherever he is, saying to people, look, if I could do it, if I could clean up and set myself right, you can too.
Yeah.
And that just as much as the music, that's a huge part of his legacy.
You know, there was a great, striking quote in your book about, I feel pity for those who have never been touched by addiction. And I thought, so you want to talk about his addiction and the relation of addiction to creativity and.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, that creativity, it just creates extra sensitivity. And it also, you know, like I said about the ego, people feed that ego, the backstage crowd, the hangers-on, you know, they're just like telling you all the time how great you are. You know, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you're the whatever. Whatever the popular expression is, I guess now you'd say you're the goat, but whatever. But you have to remember that the goat is also the one that carried the sins into the netherworld. So, so actually that's not a bad way of thinking about it, because you feel so much of a responsibility to maintain that level. Somebody like Stevie who's playing like 300 shows a year and trying to constantly be up and keep that level and stay high in every sense of the word. And just the creativity. I don't think I've ever met anyone who's really creative who doesn't have at least some insecurity. And, there's a good side to that as well, as about being humble and, you know, not thinking that you're the greatest thing around. But it can kill you, you know, it's just like, oh man. everything I do sucks, and you know, maybe if I have some anesthetic here,
Right.
whatever bottles hanging around or whatever's laid out on your table, that'll help.
Um,
Yeah, it just seems as if creative people are more prone to that, and I'm not saying that I'm, you know, wonderful and creative, but definitely I you know, kind of boosted my energy and bolstered my ego with a lot of drugs and alcohol.
right. Right. Like I can't. We have to talk about this picture. This is. I wish people could see it in. It's a gorgeous picture
Thank you.
on paper.
Yeah.
Um,
It's one of my favorites, and I always printed it with Warmtown to emulate Edward S. Curtis,
Yeah.
who was an influence on me in his Native American pictures. And you know, nowadays, of course, this picture gets some criticism, but
Right.
Stevie and Jimmy, they did have Cherokee blood, and Stevie wore it with the utmost respect. And when he found out, you know, hey, you shouldn't be wearing a war bonnet, he donated a lot of money to various Native American scholarship funds and charities. And as I said, wore it with the utmost respect. He wasn't at all wearing it to make fun of,
Yeah.
of you know, Native Americans. In fact, you know, as kids, I'm sure if Stevie played cowboys and Indians, he would have been the Indian. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, it's a rich picture in every direction, in every dimension. Um, you know, what, I'm looking for the Texas flood triptych. Is
Yeah, this kind of takes you into
this is it.
Oh, go ahead, Robert. I'm sorry. It
This is
takes
it.
you
This
into
is
the
it. We're
creative
right.
process.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Go.
this is
This
the
is.
contact.
I thought when I looked at this, it's just a it seems to be a sequence of it's like emotion shooting through a person. It's a really
I think
great.
let's go to the next slide. I'm sorry to interrupt you again.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
there you go. Oh my God,
yeah.
that's
And Stevie actually picked these off of that contact sheet as his favorites. He's playing the solo in Texas Flood, and you can see not just the emotion and you know, it's the agony and the ecstasy. He's got these humongous strings, and bending them, you know, it hurts. So
yeah,
there's that, and just the passion in that song. And I think, you know, to go back to my quote about feeling sorry for people who had never suffered addiction, just to have some kind of passion, even if it, you know, I was quote unquote a good or a bad passion, but just to have that.
yeah.
Is
And I
important.
love that so you see it kind of, you know, the rightmost image is he's got his right arm at his side now. It's kind of like, okay, he's beginning this is the post-coital moment, if you will. But you know, it's just it's a wonderful set of images and so and so rich. And you know, you always you don't always, but you primarily shot in black and white, not color. You want to talk about black and white versus color?
Well, sure. Okay, you know, people have attached a lot of, oh, this is a perfect picture to go with that. Sometimes concert lighting is pretty great, and sometimes, well, in the late 80s and 90s and so on, the color, especially color transparency film, the fast film, the film that was higher than, believe it or not, ISO 400, which is nothing now. It was horrible. It had grain, which, you know, that's basically noise in analog terms. It
Right.
had grain that was like, you know, the size of a basketball, and the colors were weird and all that. So just to get the maximum image quality, I shot black and white, almost exclusively. And I just, like black and white for Stevie. There was no, great symbolic or metaphoric meaning behind that. In fact, there was a movie by Lindsay Anderson, one of the Malcolm McDowell movies, and half of it's in color and half of it's in black and white.
Is that
And
it?
yes, yes. And
Yeah.
he was asked, Lindsay Anderson was asked, well, oh, wow, that's so deep how you did that. And it's just so symbolic and everything. And Lindsay Anderson said, well, the thing is, we were shooting in color and we ran out of money halfway through and decided to shoot the rest in black and white. So, you can't always second guess the creative process,
Yeah. Yeah, good movie too.
Okay, and this is the one that's on the cover. And this, actually, and yes, consciously, there's a Milton Green image of Marlena Dietrich where she's got her head down and her hair is covering her face and she's got her legs stretched out. And, you can't see her face, but you know who it is from her famous legs and so on. And just like this one, you don't see Stevie's face, but this couldn't possibly be anyone else.
Right.
So that was
Here's
an influence too. Yeah.
Here's the classic Stevie hat, and this is kind of the fully mature persona from that kind of the look like a boy at the beginning of the book. I thought that was an interesting thing to watch him grow up, at least as a public figure.
Unfortunately, it was in a space of so few years.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd started shooting him earlier, of course, but what they say about hindsight.
Yeah.
And this was the last full show that I shot of Stevie's, and always going to be one of my favorites. He's playing Voodoo Child.
Oh wow.
And there's always that connection with him and Hendrix, and
right.
And,
how did you find out he had been killed?
I had just sent a bunch of photographs. This was before you'd email a file to somebody. I'd sent photographs to Guitar World magazine because some kind of lighting thing had fallen on the neck of number one, the guitar here, and broken it. And so they said, well, can you send us some pictures of Stevie with the number one guitar? And so early one morning, I got a call from Guitar World. This was a couple months later. And the art director said, well, the pictures that you sent us of Stevie, can you send them back? And I said, sure, what's going on? And he told me, and I thought, it was some horrible joke because he was a real New York smartass.
Yeah.
So that's how I found out. And it was
And
pretty devastating.
yeah, I can imagine. And like you said, he was cut short. Like too many.
He was a friend too, just to think, selfishly to think, oh man, I never get to do this again. I never get to see him and hear him and talk to him and shoot pictures of him.
Yeah. Yes, all the more tragic. Why don't we? Yeah.
That's Jimmy, the guy whose picture is in the dictionary next to the word cool.
Yeah. That's pretty damn cool.
It is indeed. And this was when he was with the fabulous Thunderbirds, and that's one of his other famous strats. Just incredibly photogenic guy. And as I said, I met him before I met Stevie. And, I thought Jimmy was the most amazing guitar player I'd ever heard. And, I still... if I had to do like a top 3 or 4 or even 5, Jimmy is definitely in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here he is with Billy Gibbons many years later at Antone's, another very, very famous and wonderful club in Austin, started by Clifford Anton many years ago. And this was one of the pictures after I'd gone to digital. I kind of waited for digital to get up to the quality of film, because at first it was horrible. You'd spend like, $5,000 for a 2-megapixel camera.
Right. Right.
And that's one of the good things about technology, is that the prices go down and the quality goes up, which is very rare. So this is one of those, and
This is where you started to feel comfortable in digital.
well, this was some years after that, actually. I think let me think, when I first started shooting digital, wow, I'm trying to think when, I guess like around 2010.
Okay.
The first show I did with a digital camera was an Archangel show with Doyle Bramhall II and Charlie Sexton and Ripper and Tommy from Double Trouble. And I had borrowed a Leica 8.2 from Leica. And, it was like, oh, this is so weird. Well, it was just like a Leica, except the capture was different. Instead of film, you were using a memory card.
Yeah.
But for many, many reasons, it was very much alike. And that was a very early Leica camera. It was APS format. It wasn't full frame, and it was only 10 megapixels. But the quality of the images was incredible.
So you're still shooting, and are you shooting all digital?
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And going back and forth here. Here's another. This is one of my favorite ones of Jimmy. This is here at Rockefeller's. You see behind me. That's the same stage. And Jimmy was playing a song called "The Crawl," where he always did the thing where he played the guitar behind his head, right before I took this. And for some reason, the security guards at the club that night decided they didn't want me to shoot. So they let go of me for the encore, and I ran up to the stage and I put the camera behind my head and with my leg up in the air, and Jimmy did the same. Thank bless his soul.
I love getting the sole of his shoe, his boot.
Oh yeah.
That's
yeah.
fun.
So yes, forever grateful to him, and it's one of my favorite pictures. So, definitely. Jimmy. Going back to digital. Yeah, I really like digital. It's much easier on your lungs to not be in the darkroom. It's easier on your feet and legs and back to not be in the darkroom, because admittedly, when I was doing a lot of darkroom work, darkroom chemicals were not the only chemicals I was consuming. But, sometimes to get a picture perfect, I would be in there for like 7 or 8 or 9 hours, and you come out of there, and first of all, it's like you've been in a tunnel, in a dark tunnel, and second, just you can't inhale that stuff. Even I had a huge ventilator in my dark room, but it didn't really, didn't really help that much. So this is knowledge called A Vintage Trouble, and he also wrote one of the forewords. He's a Swedish expatriate, and Vintage Trouble is an amazing band. I shoot them, well, not too lately because of COVID, but like late last year.
Right.
And so we'll go on to a picture.
Yeah.
A picture, Carl. Okay. Lucas Nelson. Yeah, you don't necessarily think of Lucas as being somebody who would, be like thinking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. Well, Lucas actually does an amazing version of Texas Flood, and Stevie is a big influence on him. And he's a really nice guy, and his dad wrote stuff like Nightlife, which is basically a blues song.
Yeah.
And Willie's, really quite a guitar player. I mean, and Trigger has the holes to prove it.
Right.
So, yeah, he's quite the picker himself.
Yeah.
And then I think we have one more slide. No, two more. Okay, this is Eric Tesner. I don't know where. Oh, he's over there hiding in the corner. This is him playing here at Rockefeller's and doing the T-bone behind the back guitar thing.
Yeah.
He's terrific, and David Grissom is an incredible player. He wrote the third foreword for the book, and this was one of my favorite Sony shots. I shoot Sony now. I just got the Sony A7C, which is a rectangular full-frame camera, and it's a beautiful camera, and I'm thrilled to get it. I can't wait to shoot a show with it. Please God, please, yeah.
That's a cool guitar. It's a unusual.
Yes, it's a PRS. It's
Smith, yeah.
Yeah, with the bird guitar, and the neck is half maple and half rosewood. And, yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh.
David has a signature PRS guitar and PRS amps and so on. And, you know, I can't guarantee that you'll sound like David Grissom if you get him, because he's one of a kind as well. He's one of the best players I've ever heard too.
Yeah.
As is Eric, but since he's sitting here, it's harder to say that, you know.
You can't say that, yeah. Car, do we want to take questions from?
Well, let's do that last picture, because I did want to say something.
Oh, okay.
If you don't mind, yeah. Gary Clark Jr., who's another fantastic player. And this is something where, you know, you hear about visualization, which is something that Ansel Adams did with his landscape photography. When I shot this picture in real time, I'm shooting it, you know, in the present, and I'm thinking, this is how I want it to look, the way it does here, the warm tone and everything. And just because of, you know, he's got this old Gibson and he's playing old blues. I think he might have been playing Catfish Blues, some song like that. And this was how I saw it, you know, even though I was shooting it, of course, in color, which you do with RAW format, which is a great thing about digital, that you can shoot both. And that was definitely the visualization. But it's just like, it's like playing the guitar or you know, any sport that people are amazingly proficient with. You don't like think of these steps in your head. You might think, oh yeah. But if you stop and think about it, you're lost.
Right.
So
right.
That's the thing.
All about flow.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that was the last slide. So yeah, definitely, let's take some questions. Questions. Do we have, I can't see them, so.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, should I be reading them?
I'm happy to read them. Robert, if you would like to as well, you're welcome to.
Okay. Oh, here, I got them now. I didn't notice them.
Let me see if I click on questions, if they'll, here we go. The favorite picture.
Yeah, your favorite.
Yeah.
Your favorite of Stevie Ray.
Wow. Well, there's so many. One of them is the headdress. Another is the cover shot, of course. The cover shot, here we go. And the back cover shot. You know, and these are kind of bookends. This being one of the last times I saw him, the last full show I shot, and this is the first show. So I really can't narrow it down to one. I hate to do that. You know, it's like somebody asking a parent, "Who's your favorite kid?"
Right.
What made me want to do music photography? It's just the excitement. You know, the passion of the music. It's just portraits to me are very static. You know, it's fun to shoot off stage stuff, and like that picture of David Grissom, for example, you could consider that a portrait, but that's not something that I want to do. My dad tried to have a portrait studio, and that's how he said, "Oh man, I can't do this. I'm doing medical photography." So you got to, you know, in something creative, you got to kind of follow your passion. And I mean, I've taken like some business or industrial pictures and so on, you know, to pay the bills. And I've worked in retail selling cameras and so on. No, weddings or portraits, no, especially weddings. I just, no, you know,
Yeah.
not something I would be into shooting. What is the secret of making someone look good on film? Well, first of all, you have to use a film camera. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, if you use a digital camera, you're not making them look good on film. I'm sorry. The secret, I guess, is empathy. I would say. You know, you kind of put yourself in their place. I mean, like right now, I'm on camera, and it's the wrong side of the camera for me, and I'm so uncomfortable. But the key is trying to make someone comfortable, and you know, because even if someone's playing, you get terribly self-conscious. I mean, if I were sitting here with a camera, I'd still be terribly self-conscious. So you have to empathize with that and see someone the way you think they would want their essence captured, the way they would want to be seen. And you know,
which is a tough thing in a live club. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I mean, because you're shooting their stage persona.
Yeah.
Which is,
true.
You know, it's going to be different no matter what, you know. Because, well, as an audience, we don't necessarily want just regular humans standing. We want gods, you know.
Yeah.
So,
it's true. It's true.
So there's a little bit of that, but you have to. I think the main thing is to see people the way they would want to be seen. You know, it's kind of like you're a selfie camera, and you're taking something that you feel they would want captured. And whether that's a particular guitar or something that you're doing on the guitar or something like that, that's how I try to portray people.
Yeah. Well,
So why don't you tell us about your book, Robert?
My book. My old book, Loudmouth. Yeah, it's out there, and now it's out there in audio, ebook, and the damn audio book finally came out. So that's out there everywhere. But I wanted to ask you, Tracy, what's next? Who, what, where are you shooting next?
That's a very good question. And of course, you know, blame it on COVID. Well, I will. You know?
Yeah.
I shot Eric here at Rockefeller's about a week and a half ago, but, and you know, he put on a great show, but he put on a great show in a mask with a few people sitting down, socially distanced. And I mean, there were some people going nuts, thank God. There was massive amounts of air guitar in the front. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've got a new camera and a couple of new lenses, and there's always architecture, which I also love.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Crazy times. Well, hopefully it'll, you know, next year we'll be the goddamn thing will be over. You know.
Oh, I know.
I wonder how it will change. I mean, it's killing the clubs around where I live. And, you know, I wonder how it, you know, I'm sure you've seen the same thing. And
yes.
So will there be venues left?
It's not just clubs, it's the musicians themselves. So,
yeah, that's true.
You know, EricTesner.com, you know, Eric's got some amazing music and work that you can get there. Ian Moore, who we didn't talk about, but he's one of my favorites. Gary Clark Jr., David Grissom, all those guys. Get the book, read the last section of the book, the people who are still playing or still trying to play in this modern world, and support them.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
in any way you can. You know, buy the music. Don't just download stuff on Spotify or whatever. Although, of course, I do that too. But you know,
buy some vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I have a question for both of you, if you wouldn't mind indulging me.
Okay.
Great. Since you have both been involved in the music industry for some time, I wonder if you could speak to kind of how that's changed in the amount of time, especially maybe working in music press, things like that. How has that changed, either for better or worse?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll let Robert go first because he's so much associated with Creem magazine.
Uh, well, I tell you what, how it's changed from writing about music. Somebody was asking me this earlier today, and when we used to do stories, I mean, I almost never did a phone interview. It was always in person, and you had a certain level of managers and people, but it wasn't all. You had some control as a journalist. It wasn't all in the control of the artist or the artist's manager or whatever. So you could actually, you could kind of get to know people, and it was and I think that's much tougher now. Everybody's so concerned with managing their image, and it's and that just makes for boring stories, and so that's changed. And I'll tell you what, the other thing that's changed, which is we were kind of what we were talking about was, forget COVID, musicians were already in trouble because of no more selling physical CDs or physical albums, and that drove them all out on the road, where they had to raise ticket prices and all this stuff, and now the road is gone. So but the it seemed like, once you'd achieved a certain level as a rock star, if you didn't spend it all on cocaine, you could have a nice life. And there is no more ongoing income from Spotify don't cut it for to pay for any kind of sumptuous lifestyle. So I think it's changed a lot. That the digitizing of the music is big, and we'll see what happens with COVID. I think it may take, people say, oh, well, this is going to kill music. Well, it will never kill music. And it won't even kill music venues, but it may kill them for 10 years. And then there's going to be younger people come along that don't really remember so well that there was this thing called COVID that killed venues, and they'll open venues again, and they'll start in their, doing it in basements, and then it'll kind of regenerate itself. I think you can't kill music, that's for sure.
Oh, I sure hope not. No. What would life be without music?
Yeah.
Think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It'd be pretty sad, I mean,
How have
ever
you
since
seen it change?
ever since some caveman or woman started banging on a rock, with rhythm.
Right.
What would life be without music?
Right. How have you seen it change, Tracy?
Well, I would be really redundant because you pretty much covered it. And of course, I never, I always work with musicians that I like. So I didn't have that much where I was sent out to shoot a specific thing. What I did with magazines was mostly either pitch something to them or just tell them, well, when you got a story on someone. But I think it's easier to get to know people that way. And also, it's been a long time since it was super easy to get to know famous bands well. I mean, you look at, the control that the manager had over Led Zeppelin and, people like that. It's not like, not like that's something that just started. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I stopped writing about music mostly in a long time ago. So, that's probably why this is a novel. And probably why it's like kind of, people say, oh, I love reading about, back in the old days. And it's like, oh shit, this isn't the old, this is like my life. This isn't, to younger people,
Yeah.
it is indeed ancient
Well,
history.
talk about time and past and present, and you can really mess with your mind. You think, well, I'm taking this picture in the present for a fraction of a second, and the next fraction of a second it's the past. Then when I process the file, then it's the present again. Then after I do that, it's the past. And what is a print? Is it the
Yeah.
past, the present, or the future? All there.
Right.
So
And is it that
talk
thing that,
about
is it the
yeah,
process?
and
Is it the process of processing it in Lightroom or in Photoshop?
yeah, it's just, yes. And, to me, I really like digital, I will say, for photography. And, to me, people who have big arguments against it, it's almost like when film took over from glass plates.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, that film isn't real. Or when miniature cameras like Leicas and some of the Zeiss 35 millimeter were first invented, and people go, what is that? That's not a real camera.
Right. Well, and it's the same with recording music. I'm here, I have a music studio, and
Oh, yeah.
it's, there's still people who are, I mean, they love analog, and, it's fine, but I was so happy when digital came along, when I could manipulate sounds, at will.
And home darkrooms. How important is a really state-of-the-art home darkroom right now?
Yeah, exactly.
With COVID, you can still produce your music and have it be out there and sound the way you want it to, without going to an external studio and all that. So
it's
that's
amazing, and
important.
that's just what everybody does.
Do we have one more question there? It says, I think there's an open question.
Oh.
I don't know. I have to ask Carl. You see
Tracy,
another question?
yeah. Tracy,
Okay.
are most of your photos based around the Texas area, or do you do a lot of traveling?
Well, not now. No, I never did travel much to shoot music because there's so much of it here, and everybody plays in Texas. Or, once again, past and present, everybody played in Texas before COVID. But there wasn't really a need to do that. And you'd see the bands you love would be back a couple of times a year at least. So, I mean, I'm traveling different cities in Texas, sure. And, but mostly when I travel, I just shoot architecture and bridges in Chicago and Portland, things like that. So, a lot of night photography, which is very contemplative and a lot of fun for me, even if it's a Chicago winter.
Well, Tracy, I think that your book really captures, speaking of place and time, I think it really captures some great musicians that are part of, as Robert was saying, Texas's kind of musical legacy, and it's a great compendium for that. It's about time, I think, we sign off for the evening. Was there anything else you folks wanted to add?
Well, buy Robert's book. And buy my book and my prints, and please contribute to the food bank, and don't just contribute to the food bank now. People are still going to be hungry in January and February, and that's a very sad truth. But if you have a fundraiser for the food bank in, say, February, that would be a good time too.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm down for that if anybody wants to do that.
Agreed.
I'll second that.
Someone in the Q&A earlier did mention that the San Francisco Marin Food Bank has a donor match going on this evening, so anything you contribute through the end of today will be matched by a larger donor. So that is something for you all to consider. Please do buy Robert and Tracy's books from us. We have signed copies of Loudmouth here at the store. We also have signed copies of Seeing Stevie Ray, and it's also the holidays, folks, and I can't think of a better gift than books. I can't think of maybe a better combo than two music-based books. One's photography, one's a novel, so you get different genres in there, something for everybody. And I'll ask too one more thing, Tracy, where can folks buy your prints?
Oh, they can buy my prints at theheightsgallery.com. And I think there was a slide back there a while ago. Yeah, it's a slide right before this one, the first one, theheightsgallery.com. And I'm also on Instagram at Heights Gallery. And of course, on Instagram, if you search for me by my name, you'll find me that way too, and Facebook as well. So go to the website, go to Instagram, which of course has the more recent stuff. I admit I'm like everybody else. I tend to update Instagram a lot more than my website. So check that out. And thank you. Thank you, Carr, for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's
Thank you, Carr and Green Apple. And shop at Green Apple, wonderful bookstore.
Shop at local stores, people. Yeah.
We love Green Apple.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Tracy. And
thank you.
Thank you for joining us all out there on the internet, and we will see you later. Good night.
Thank you, Tracy.
All right. Thanks, Robert.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So